Hi everyone that's joined so far. We're just waiting for a few more people to join and we can get started. I'll just give it another minute, guys. Okay, I think we're good to start.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today's session called Getting Started with GitLab. Just to introduce ourselves real quick, my name is Josiah Tillett. I am a DevOps consultant at Adaptavist. I'll let Bart introduce himself.
Thanks, Josiah. Bart Zhang here. I'm a senior partner solutions architect with GitLab, and I've been with GitLab for roughly the past 2 years.
Okay. So our agenda for today, we're going to go over a quick introduction about ourselves, about our companies, GitLab and Adaptavist respectively, and then kind of cover a little bit about why we're holding this webinar. We'll talk about why you might want to choose GitLab if you haven't already. I expect that most of you, if you're here, you've already made a commitment to utilizing GitLab for your business or your company. We'll talk a bit about explaining what the CI/CD process is, what pipelines are, what are GitLab runners. We'll talk about some of the security and compliance features that you can incorporate into your own development process that GitLab provides. We'll talk about installation of GitLab, how you can set yourself up with it, some of the migration tools that you can utilize to move yourself off of other repositories, other project management softwares. We'll have Bart, he'll go over some of our highlighted features, kind of discuss some of the cool things that GitLab can do that I think you guys are going to really enjoy if you aren't already using them. And then finally, I'll cover the Adaptavist DevOps Maturity Assessment, which is a little quick sales thing we got to pitch to you before we get into our Q&A. Any questions you have, Bart and I will hopefully we'll be able to answer them or point you in the right direction. Just a little bit about me real quick. I am like I said, a DevOps consultant at Adaptavist. I've been working in this field for about 5 years. I've been a consultant with Adaptavist for about 2 or 3 years at this point, 2.5 years at this point. My background before that was in QA. I was working for a company and I realized I was doing a lot of server administration. I was doing a lot of CI work, getting stuff from our developers into our development, our QA environments. And I, from that point, transitioned into DevOps. My GitLab usage, I work in several volunteer spaces, and I'm a huge proponent of using GitLab, both for my own personal projects and for a lot of my volunteer projects. We also see it very frequently here at Adaptavist as clients come to us and ask us questions about how to properly utilize their GitLab instances. And, because of my QA background, I'm a huge proponent of using automation to make your testing more consistent, to make it easier, and to validate your code. I'll pass it off to Bart.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm a senior partner SA with GitLab now for several years, and I've been in various technical and engineering roles within DevOps and cloud space for roughly 7 years. Prior to that, I was an engineer in the energy industry, so transitioned from that into core tech about 7 years ago. I currently support relationships between GitLab and some of our hyperscalers and platform partners such as AWS, IBM, and Red Hat. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions specific to how we integrate and support joint solutions with those vendors and hyperscalers. And fun fact about me, I just recently certified as a Google Pro Cloud Architect. So if you have any questions about Google Cloud that you need help with, absolutely reach out to me as well. Back over to you, Josiah.
Just a quick introduction of who we are. I assume that since most of you guys are here in this call, you know who GitLab are. They're open source software developer. GitLab as a tool was originally created by Ukrainian and Dutch developers in 2014. But nowadays, mainstream usage as an integrated code repository and CI/CD platform. And because of that, that's why I'm very honored to be able to partner with Bart and GitLab to put on this webinar for you guys. A little bit about Adaptavist. We are an international conglomerate of several small companies that have the common goal of making businesses work better. That is the polite business version of it. I personally, as a bit more of a blunter person, I prefer how our CEO Simon puts it in his very dry British sense of humor, where he says our primary goal as a company is to help other companies suck less. I find that amusing. Hope you do too. We do technical consulting in both discrete and long-term engagements for tools in the digital ecosystem. We are partners with GitLab, Atlassian, AWS, along with many, many other companies in the software space. And we are partners with those groups because we love to flex those relationships in order to help provide value to our clients, just like the partnership we have with GitLab today to put on this webinar. So let's talk a little bit about why you might want to choose GitLab. If you have already made the decision to choose GitLab, then consider yourself in a good boat because all of these features are now available to you. But if you haven't quite made that decision, here are some of the reasons why you might want to use GitLab. GitLab will help you decrease your cycle times. Being an integrated platform for CI/CD, we'll go over a bit about what CI/CD is and how it can help your team. But know that one of the major benefits of utilizing CI/CD as a platform is that it will help you decrease your development cycle times. Your software development lifecycle flow time will go a little bit quicker. GitLab also has some great new AI features that it's been working on recently. Bart will go over that towards the end of the presentation. But if you hear the term GitLab Duo, know that we're referencing the AI features that GitLab has. There are also robust suites of both privacy and security features, which we'll go over probably about midway through the presentation, which we'll talk about how you can integrate that into your development process. Many of them are available right out of the box, which is great news for you. But in addition to that, a lot of these templates and a lot of these features that we're talking about are also customizable. GitLab being an open source product at its core, is built around the ability for you to customize things to what you need. So if you are a larger company that already has a great team in place that can work on building out your tooling the way that you want it, we have a lot of specific needs, know that GitLab can flex to be useful for what you need. There's also end-to-end compliance and auditability, which we'll talk about. I think Bart will cover a little bit. We'll talk about how you can export reports and how you can verify certifications for any kind of security auditing that you might need to do as a part of your day-to-day operations. There are also many different deployment options. GitLab is very flexible as a platform. We'll cover that a bit in the installation section. There are end-to-end metrics and visibility. Like I said, there are tons and tons of dashboards and reports and ways for you to, as a manager or as a developer, to get a bird's eye view of how you are doing and what kind of flaws or what kind of issues might be cropping up in your development process or in your code. GitLab is built from the ground up with agile methodologies. So if you are already in agile, that's great news. You are ready to go. And then finally, GitLab, there is no vendor lock-in. So if you have any concerns about whether or not you want to be hosting your GitLab platform on AWS, on Azure, Google Cloud, maybe even locally hosted on the rack in your office, GitLab can support all of that just great. So moving right along, let's get started by talking a bit about the main phrase CI/CD. What is it? How can it help you out? CI/CD is the automation of repetitious parts of your software development lifecycle. Your teams are going to be writing code, which then has to be tested, placed in your stage environment, tested again, placed in your production environment, and then checked one last time for any major issues. You can see that if you follow that little flow chart we have on the slide here. Your specific process might look a little bit different. but it likely involves some amount of development, QA, and operational work. In this process, there's a lot of wasted effort that goes into performing the same repetitive tasks every time you want to make a change. All of us have experienced a bug that slipped through QA because of environmental differences in staging and production, or have felt the pressure of trying to get a hotfix out when you can't quite find the cause, and you're spending all of this time performing your tests, setting up in your environments, and just wasting a lot of energy on things that don't really matter. What CI/CD does is it helps us remove obstacles and variables from this process by automating all of it away. Continuous integration, which is often abbreviated to CI, is the front half of your software development lifecycle. It allows for automation of your build processes, code review, and initial unit testing. On successful runs of a CI pipeline, you can run the second part of your pipeline, which is the continuous delivery or continuous deployment, often abbreviated to CD. This is the part of the pipeline that deploys to staging environments, performs regression testing, and if approved, pushes to production. The nuance of those two terms, delivery and deployment, is just for your information, is whether or not that final push to production is a manual or an automatic process, which is often why when we talk about CI/CD, we don't make a distinction between delivery or deployment. CI/CD pipelines require a lot of upfront work, to be clear, but they can save your team a tremendous amount of busy work in the long run. In GitLab, you're going to manage this via the gitlab-ci.yaml file, which you'll find on each project, where you can specify what containers, how to build your code, what the tests to run, along with any other automation that GitLab provides or that you and your teams want to bring. The caveat I will provide there is unless you are using auto DevOps, which Bart will go over in a little bit, in which case you do not want to have that gitlab-ci YAML file on your project. How does all of this work? GitLab runners, which I will go over right now. So this is a very high level architecture diagram. I wouldn't even call it an architecture diagram. It's just more of an informational diagram about how GitLab works. We'll talk about what a runner is in just a moment, but I want to show you how this system works, because a lot of the times when we talk about GitLab, we can think about GitLab as a single monolithic product. In reality, it's actually several different products working together. You have the core GitLab server, which is where you're going to have your code repository. It's going to be kind of the brains of your operation. And then that interacts with your runner server. You can have as many GitLab runners as you'd like. You can host them locally on your own laptop, or you can host them on another server or a series of containers that are accessible to your GitLab server. You can technically place GitLab runners on your GitLab server, but it's highly recommended you don't. And considering how easy it is to spin up containers in AWS or on your rack, you should never have to do this. So a runner is an application that processes your CI/CD jobs. You're going to deploy it separately from your main GitLab installation. You're going to register it with your main GitLab installation, and then it's going to work with GitLab through API. In order to run your jobs, you're going to need at least one GitLab instance and one GitLab runner. You can have as many runners as you'd like, but you need at least one. Each runner environment, it can have multiple processes running, so it can run multiple jobs simultaneously. You can also have as many environments as you'd like. So you can have environments for iOS, for Apple, for Android, for Windows, for Linux. You can have Docker environments, as many as you need. What you'll commonly run into are shared runners, which are available for any job that you want to run. But there's also another kind of runner called a specific runner, which are for, you guessed it, specific jobs. In the cases where you want to use a specific runner, Those are places where you have a particularly intensive part of your pipeline, or if you have a job that has specific requirements that are atypical for the rest of your development cycle. Generally, you're going to be using shared runners, but know that specific runners are available when you need them. So I hope that's a good explanation of runners for you. Again, we have a Q&A at the end if you have any other questions about this. So how does CI/CD benefit your team? As we've gone through these slides, you can probably imagine some of the potential benefits. It's going to remove busy work for you. It's going to free up your teams to focus on what really matters, which is producing strong software. With CI/CD, you guys are freed up to iterate faster. You can filter for simple errors without fatiguing your QA team who have to run through the same process again and again and again. And then those QA teams themselves are freed up to work on their own automation and improving the quality of your product overall. GitLab runners, they are able to help you abstract away the process of building and creating and testing in dev environments, because you can just simply tell GitLab how you'd like your code to be tested, and then it takes care of the rest. Making these kinds of improvements can help your development cycle be more consistent, and it leads to better visibility between teams. GitLab runners keep detailed logs of all actions. So hopefully, they keep detailed logs of all actions. So you'll be able to track where and why something failed for your own troubleshooting process. Your developers, your QA team, everyone's going to be happier getting consistent and prompt feedback. Each pipeline fails, there's consistent feedback, and it is prompt. Hopefully you can see that this kind of streamlining will have downstream benefits, not just for your developers, but also for your QA team, also for your operational teams. That's it on CI/CD. Now let's move in to talk a little bit about security and compliance. This is, GitLab has prioritized security and compliance features, and now you're able to integrate them into your own CI jobs. Over on the right here is a little screenshot showing you kind of what that would look like for you. There are some really, really cool features that are available just straight out of the box for you to use with your own pipeline, such as vulnerability analysis for source code, dependencies, web applications, and IAC, infrastructure as code configurations. This can all be accessed via default templates that you can incorporate into your own config file. Note that they do run during different stages. So if you want to include a certain kind of test, you need to make sure that your config includes that stage. For instance, when you commit code, GitLab can scan your code for secrets, passwords, API keys. It can scan your source code and your config files and look for potential vulnerabilities. GitLab's static application security testing package, it'll support most, if not all, of the major frameworks and languages. And even this is like a little nuance that I really appreciate, and I just want to call out. GitLab even has license checks. So if you pre-configure, I want to use these certain licenses, GitLab will scan your commits, and if it finds a license that isn't already automatically approved, it'll just block the merge request. GitLab, the team at GitLab has put a lot of thought into specific requirements and made sure that they've tried to cover pretty much every use case you could think of, and I really appreciate that about them. Once a pipeline has already started and it's underway, GitLab will pen test your application using the robust dynamic application software testing suite. It'll simulate real world attacks and look for critical threats such as cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and cross-site request forgery. There is API testing. It's API fuzz testing, in which case it sets operational parameters to unexpected values in an effort to cause unexpected behavior and errors in the API backend. Just again, simulating a real world environment. What are people going to be trying on this? How are people going to be trying to break my software? GitLab does its best to emulate that real world environment for you in your testing stage. At the same time that all of this is going on, GitLab's also scanning your containers and your other components to search for potential vulnerabilities that are beyond the actual code that you've written. All of this is available in the results of all of your tests. And for any kind of automated analysis, will be available in a dedicated report called the vulnerability report. This is an aggregate report of all of the flaws that were found in subsequent pipeline runs. You can check out this report on a project by project basis, excuse me. It's great for, like I said, managers, developers, anyone that's looking for a bird's eye view of potential vulnerabilities and any ongoing work to mitigate those vulnerabilities. There is basic search and sort functionality that's built into this report. Any way you might want to group your vulnerabilities together, GitLab generally can do that for you. It's also possible to manually add vulnerabilities that weren't caught by your automated analysis. You can group your vulnerabilities together. You can break them out into GitLab issues for project management. Or you can also mark certain vulnerabilities as false positives. And as well, all of this data is exportable for any kind of external reporting you might need to do to your security teams. I'm going to pass this section over to Bart real quick so he can talk about our policy automation and our trust center.
Thanks, Josiah. Yeah, so what Josiah mentioned earlier around kind of the security tools we provide out of the box, such as static application security testing, dynamic application security testing, secrets detection, infrastructure as code scanning, license compliance. These are great tools in and of itself, but where we really kick it up a notch is we integrate it into the developer workflow itself, so that you can place these controls and checks and balances on what developers can and can't push to the main branch or the production branch of your code through things like scan execution policies and scan results policies. So where we integrate the results of any changes to your code with again, additional approvals. Let's say if a developer, for example, introduces code that causes a vulnerability or a license violation to occur. Now you have the ability to build these custom and granular policies on, number one, what scans must run with every change to the code, and number two, what you want to do about the output of the scan results. So like if there are critical CVEs that get caught or flagged through the process of security scanning the changes to the code, now you can actually, again, introduce these automatic policies that get put into place across all of your projects or a specific subset of your projects, depending on how you want to set up your policies. And this makes it very automatic and less of a hands-on, let's pour through every scan report and look at the output. And it makes it very, from a security perspective, it makes it very hands-off as a process. Once you set up the policies once, they get enforced, and now developers need to adhere to you know, the guidelines that you set right through your policies. We also have something called our GitLab Trust Center for customers that are looking to understand how GitLab fits into their you know, industry-specific compliance frameworks. Let's say you're tied to HIPAA or SOC or GDPR or ISO, SOC compliance, TSAX. We have corresponding documentation and resources on how we help customers comply to those industry standard frameworks, and all of that's available self-service, and you can get connected with you know, our teams and the Adaptavist teams if you need anything more specific to help support your compliance journey. And we have two versions of this. These resources, one dedicated towards our .com offering, and then one for those of you who want to do a self-managed GitLab. Next slide.
So just quickly going over some of the installation, the upgrading, migration tasks over this next section. We'll run through these a little bit quicker just because it's pretty easy to digest information. Know that GitLab is available for many installation versions. You can install on Linux for most common distros. In fact, that is the most recommended is installing the omnibus version of GitLab onto Linux. But it's also available for Kubernetes. There are packages available for most major cloud providers: AWS, Azure, GCP. And then there's also a Docker container as well that you can grab to run your own GitLab instances. The system requirements, I won't go over them too depth. These are listed out for 1,000 users, which is pretty much good for everyone, for what I would expect most people would be wanting. But know that GitLab does on their installation guide have t-shirt sizing available for all the way up to 50,000 users, telling you kind of what your system requirements are going to need to look like. Note that these requirements are just for the base GitLab server installation. There are other dependencies that have their own requirements, like Postgres, which is what GitLab uses as its database. So you'll need to pay attention to those requirements as well as the runners are going to have their own requirements, but those will be on other servers. So just pay attention to that. As far as upgrading goes, GitLab makes it really easy to upgrade because every month you can count on there being a new release that comes with security patches, new functionality. Know that though, if you skip a certain release, you might need to follow a certain upgrade path if you aren't the kind of person that performs a monthly or a bi-monthly upgrade on your GitLab server. And also, if you are a user who's currently on the Community Edition, know that it's really easy to just switch straight into the Enterprise Edition, since the database schemas for Postgres are in parity with each other. So upgrading should just be a matter of installing the correct package. And then Enterprise Edition has all of the same features that are in Community Edition. So it'll act as Community Edition until you're able to get your Enterprise license in place. As far as migrating from other tools, you've decided you want to use GitLab. Maybe you have your other repositories where you're having your code already. Know that GitLab provides a built-in tool for importing from most major providers like GitHub, Bitbucket, etc. There are different tools. All of this information here on this slide is about how to import, what it'll import. In GitLab, your methods are you can use your access token, you can use OAuth, you can use a REST API if you have API access to a GitLab instance. You can import your repository data, pull requests, comments, user mentions, reviewers, approvals, all of your project information. In Bitbucket, you are able to import using, I believe it's basic authentication for the cloud instance. So you'll need to set up a user for that. Or you can use a Bitbucket access token if you have one of the server editions, server enterprise. And the cloud importer will pull a ton of stuff for you. It'll pull your wiki, it'll pull your all of the basic project information. It'll pull issues if you're doing project management in Bitbucket as well. And it'll pull that all into GitLab, and it will also format it for you so that you can hit the ground running. There are a few minute differences, like if you are using Bitbucket as your current CI provider, you might need to make some adjustments to your CI file. GitLab won't do that automatically for you, but that's something I would recommend you want to do anyways. So it's a good idea to review everything as you're making your migrations. If you're currently using something like Jira for project management, GitLab also has an importing tool for that. You can import from Jira to GitLab.com or to self-managed. It'll pull all of your important information, like your issue titles, your descriptions, your labels. It'll also do plain text import of your other metadata. So any other important variables that you have in Jira metadata will be pulled in as well to your issues. And then at the time of the import, you'll be able to map your Jira users to GitLab project members. If you have system users, those can just be mapped to root. The requirements for using this tool are read access to the project in Jira and maintainer rights to your GitLab target project, wherever you're going to be importing to, and then an existing GitLab Jira integration. So GitLab does have integrations so that if you want to just continue using Jira, you can connect your GitLab project to a specific Jira project and track your issues from within Jira. Setting that up is fairly straightforward, but if you are the kind of person that wants to simplify and cut back on your project management and not deal with a lot of the unnecessary baggage that comes with Jira, know that you can utilize that integration to import from Jira directly. Adaptavist does a lot of work on migrations with various clients, mostly from server to cloud for Jira, but also from one tool to another. And just a couple of helpful tips that we put together. Take your time, simplify. Make sure that you're planning out things well in advance. Make sure that with a migration, you're planning on cleaning up your instances before you make a move. Be that from one of your repositories or one of your project management softwares. Make sure that you are taking the opportunity to stop, to breathe, to look at what you're moving, whether or not it's necessary to move, whether or not it's just old holdovers or old projects that need to be cleared up or don't really need to be pulled. Because GitLab is going to be the common adage, garbage in, garbage out. If you pull a lot of unnecessary detail from your old systems into GitLab, you lose the opportunity to kind of break free and fresh start and move forward from that point. Make sure that you're setting a migration timeline. Start simple, smaller teams, smaller setups, import those first. Make sure that you have a definitive start date and a definitive end date. Make sure that you're tracking important milestones between your start date and your end date, and that you are communicating with people as best as you can to let them know what your process is like, if you're running into any delays, and also when people can expect cutover to be. Those are just a couple of tips that we'd like to go over. Just bear them in mind. All right, and that ends it for my section. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to Bart, and he's gonna go over some of our highlighted features for you.
Thanks, Josiah. So just wanted to highlight a couple of features that we're going to jump into today. Right, we're going to discuss merge trains. So how to leverage them and what are the benefits of implementing merge trains in your projects from GitLab. We'll talk through deploying environments and what are the benefits of using GitLab to manage your environment deployments, both ephemeral or staging or review-based environments, to kind of look at what the impact of your changes are from a user behavior or dynamic application security perspective. We'll also talk about auto DevOps and what that is and how that fits into our overall CI/CD deployment strategy. And we'll talk value stream management. So again, how organizations leverage value streams in order to really track their progress towards productivity goals or metrics that they're looking to drive towards, right, from a KPI perspective. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into merge trains. So merge trains essentially are a way for you to get the output of successfully merged pipelines earlier than you would otherwise, right? And so what you're doing is you're tracking any kind of prior merge requests to a project and embedding it into any subsequent runs of pipelines. So what you're actually doing is you are basically accelerating or pushing forward the new changes to any project into what you test in an MR pipeline. And so what GitLab CI/CD does for you is it automatically searches for redundant pipelines, and it will stop them if a pipeline features a failed change, or it features a user removed merge request, or it runs on changes that are manually skipped by the merge train. What it does is it actually, again, gives you the ability to remove the pipelines that are not going to be relevant to the latest working copy of the project. And so this benefits teams that are consistently making changes to a project within a short time frame. And let's say you have team members that are all introducing commits and merging them into the branch concurrently. This will actually accelerate, again, how quickly you get the results back on the corpus or the sum of all these individual changes through MR trains. And next slide, please. So when you look at how pipelines would execute before introducing merge trains, you would actually see that there's a lot of lag time in which you would have to reinitiate pipelines because you're not testing the latest working copy of changes. So let's say you have a developer that submits merge A in this example and is able to merge it successfully. Well, if there's another developer that's initiating a merge request off of the old working copy while merge A is running, they're going to, again, have to restart that pipeline with the latest working copy of the changes now that the base branch or the main branch of the project is no longer what it used to be. And same goes for any subsequent merges off of that original merge or that happened after that original merge. So as you can see here, if you go to the next slide, merge trains will help you accelerate the feedback of any sort of, again, concurrent changes being made to any individual project. So next slide. So let's talk about environments. So environments are a way to manage actually the output of whatever you deploy from your code base through GitLab. So you can actually manage multiple branch-based deployments within a single project. And let's say you have a development environment as well as a staging environment and a production environment, or even review-based environments that are going to track the changes of any individual branch. You can actually manage all that through GitLab. So you can track and manage pipeline statuses from a central location and access those target applications or workloads through the environments dashboard. And this, again, gives you a logical management of any sort of working environments that you build off of this code. And so you can do things like tie environment-based variables to each individual environment and have that be the only changes that you make as to where and how they get deployed. So let's say you have one that's deployed on-premise and one that's deployed to cloud, or let's say you have clusters for each environment. Now you can deploy working copies of your application or branches of your application to each of those types of environments, depending on what your target environment looks like. Next slide. So with Auto DevOps, now you get a set of pre-configured templates that are going to be specific to your language, and you don't need to do a whole lot of hands-on in order to get these pipelines up and running on your projects. And this is, again, a very hands-off, hands-free way to introduce CI/CD deployment strategies to your projects. So we actually will take a look at what languages are present or application-specific binaries are present within your code base, and we will use that to determine what testing frameworks we should apply, or infrastructure as code scanning, secret detection, those types of tests upon your code base as you're executing changes against the code base. And again, it's a very hands-free way to get introduced to some of our pipeline features, right? So the benefits of taking the Auto DevOps approach are it's going to be relatively low of a lift to introduce Auto DevOps to your projects. You just simply bring your own Kubernetes platform, either self-hosted or through a managed service in cloud. And it represents no additional cost over your existing GitLab subscription. It's completely free to use with any GitLab subscription you're on. And it helps serve as a launch point as to getting you comfortable with pipeline concepts before you go deeper into customizing any of these templates or maybe configuring the pipeline to serve your needs best. Next slide. So in terms of a best practice for getting ramped up on auto DevOps, typically you want to work with an expert like Adaptavist and team to define your deployment strategy. So do you want to do continuous deployment or a timed incremental rollout or introduce manual checks or gates to deploy to production? You do also want to prepare the base domain as to where you want to deploy your apps to if you're talking about a web application. And then you define where you'd like to deploy, be it an on-prem Kubernetes solution or a cloud managed container service, such as AWS Elastic Container Service or EKS, EC2, or Kubernetes Engine. This would be kind of your deployment target where you deploy all your branch-based deployments to. It's simple as going into the settings UI and checking a box saying you do want to deploy auto DevOps, and it will actually automatically apply the pipeline templates that it recommends or suggests to your project. Next slide, Josiah. So changing gears, let's talk about value stream management. So value streams are how we measure and identify what the people, process, and tools look like for software development. And we have a number of analytical tools to help you as an org and a team understand how you guys are performing from industry standard metrics such as DORA, DevOps metrics, or value stream analytics that, again, when you bring your entire SDLC processes, be it project management, version control, continuous integration and deployment back into GitLab, now you have the ability to metric your process end to end and understand what the process looks like. And you can get a really good sense of your average timeline to completion from a product manager breaking down kind of a high level ask into individually assignable work, prioritizing that backlog and putting it into the sprint. And getting those features implemented and merged back into the code base, you get a good idea of the metrics surrounding that, where, if at all, there needs to be additional resource assigned to or additional process being introduced to help accelerate the software development cycle itself. Now you also get things like value stream forecasting with GitLab. So we actually apply time series forecasting based on current trends to predict what the future will look like according to your team performance. And it's useful for, I guess, assigning or forecasting what completion rates will look like or completion percentages would look like for the remaining amount of work for your team, for the next quarter or next couple quarters or sprints. Next slide. So let's take a minute to talk about GitLab Duo. So GitLab Duo is our generative AI feature set of solutions that we provide out of the box to anybody who wants to inject LLMs and generative AI into the SDLC. So we essentially surveyed our customers and even our own users on where or what would be the top use cases for generative AI, and we collectively came up with 16 different use cases, not just tied to code generation, but also things like creating tests or generating commit messages based off of the changes in the code, suggesting reviewers based on who's contributing to the code graph and in which parts of the code graph are they contributing to. We have things like code explanation for non-technical stakeholders that want to ramp up quickly on, what changes are being made to the code base and how does this impact them as a security professional or as an operations professional. We have ways to generate, again, things like documentation and testing based off of code that's being introduced. We also have things like root cause analysis that will help any operations folks or developers understand the output of their CI logs and how to best or most impactfully debug. Sometimes error codes are not the most intuitive, and it might take a bit of time to understand what the root cause is, and this helps you get to resolution quicker. You also get things like explain this vulnerability and resolve this vulnerability that are geared towards helping security admins get a lot of help in terms of resolving vulnerabilities that come up within their code base, and we have ways to apply AI generated fixes to the code base through these features as well. So again, it's a full end-to-end suite that that attacks every part of the AI, the software development lifecycle through AI. So it's a really great great set of features that I encourage everyone to try to get hands-on with if you have the opportunity to. I personally am a big fan of the root cause analysis, or the CI/CD pipeline failure resolution. It's very helpful for me when I'm building new projects and trying to understand how I can make them work best. So next slide. And this is where I'll hand it over to Josiah to take you through the Adaptavist DevOps maturity assessment. Josiah?
Thanks. Just real quick before we get into this, though, I do, because Bart was talking about GitLab Duo, I do want to take a moment and promote the fact that we did also, I believe, do a webinar recently. One of my coworkers, Rob Scullin, hosted that with I believe, someone from GitLab. And that webinar should be somewhere online. Vanessa or Chobin, while I run through the rest of this, if you wouldn't mind maybe trying to find the link to that and sharing it in chat. I think if you are interested in GitLab Duo, it would be a great resource for you to go through and see kind of a better explanation of what these features can do for you. Before we get to our Q&A section, and I know we allotted 15 minutes for Q&A, and it looks like we might go a little bit over. Bart and I, we're perfectly fine to hang out here until people have their questions answered. So if you're willing to sit with us, we'll be here. But hopefully this webinar has helped you understand the value of properly flexing GitLab's functionality and how it can elevate your DevOps practices to the next level. Something I've learned in my time as a consultant is that no matter where you are in your DevOps journey, there are always places that you can improve and increase efficiency. And that's why I just want to take a moment and shout out one of the service offerings that Adaptavist has that we feel could be useful to you all as you begin your GitLab journey. And that is the Adaptavist DevOps Maturity Assessment. The maturity assessment can help you learn about the strengths and weaknesses of your DevOps practices and plan out what improvements you'd like to make to your practices as you move forward. Our goals as consultants is to help every company achieve their best state given the tools and resources that they have available to them, to suck less, as it were, as Simon likes to say. Lucky for you, you've already chosen to use GitLab. And GitLab is an incredibly powerful tool with a lot of customization and a lot of flexibility, which means that your potential for your DevOps practices is through the roof. It's incredibly high. Even if you feel comfortable with where you're at and you feel comfortable in being able to guide your own development practices, the maturity assessment can also help you set a baseline as you move forward with GitLab. So you can get a baseline for where you're at right now, and then you can compare where you are in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years out from your implementation. This assessment is going to take place over 3 major steps. Step 1 being acquire. We have a mobile-friendly online form we've set up using what our partners at Monday.com via the work forms. And those forms have themes for various people, various processes, various tools. They can be tailored to different stakeholders and their roles. They can be set up for multiple teams. If you have a development team, you have a QA team, you want to see how they are, you can see how that works for them. And this online form is entirely self-paced. Actually, let me skip forward a couple of slides and show you what that form looks like. Right here, you can see just real quick, it's a series of questions. You answer from 1 to 5, whether or not you agree or disagree, and we collate those results and put them together. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Step 2, interpret. Collate and visualize the results of your surveys. Look for inconsistencies, incompatibilities, correlations, how teams are working together, how teams aren't working together. We as Adaptavist, we can help you identify emerging patterns or anti-patterns, potential problems, potential benefits of the way that some teams are working. And we can help assign a kind of like a 1 to 5 number to give you a score in each category of how you're performing at this current moment. And then the third step of the maturity assessment is to plan. Take time to plan to address areas of concern. Figure out what your areas of concern are. Maybe you want to improve your time to production. Maybe you want to improve how often you guys you want to reduce your number of Sev 1s. You want to reduce how many bugs make it through QA. You want to reduce your time to approve. Figure out what you want to improve and what you want to work on based on the results of the assessment. And then we can help you tackle your budget, your business strategy, your commercial aspects, your licensing, your digital estate strategy, your vendor relationships, and figure out how to reorganize, how to make incremental improvements, and how to get you to a better place of greater efficiency, greater collaboration, and greater innovation. And come back to this slide one more time. This is just what that slide, that survey looks like, customizable for where you are, who you are in your company, if you're a manager, if you're a developer, what that looks like. If this is interesting to you, you can check us out at adaptavist.com/solutions/DevOps-maturity-assessment. We'll share that link in the chat if we haven't already. There is a form you can fill out there if you have any questions about anything that we've covered today. Feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to help you out in your DevOps journey and your GitLab journey. And with that, that's all the content we have for today. So I'd like to move into a brief Q&A session, just in case anyone who's joined us today has any questions for us. I know we have a handful of participants, so let us know if you have any questions. I'm going to open up the chat and take a look real quick. You can feel free to drop it in the Q&A section in the Zoom, or feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions, and then you can come off. Actually, I don't know if you can come off mute. I'm not a Zoom guru, and I believe we're doing a presentation.
Yeah, any questions for us? We're more than happy to chat or maybe address any questions about the specific topic that we discussed today.
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to drop any questions in that question and answer, the Q&A section in the Zoom browser window. We'll wait just a minute and we'll see if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, we can close out a few minutes early.
You've got two experts on GitLab on the line, so take advantage of this opportunity and ask any questions that you might have, any burning questions about GitLab.
Yeah, I apologize for the awkwardness of this. I didn't realize that people weren't going to be able to come off mute. That's my fault for not understanding how the Zoom presentation mode works. So we'll sit here and wait just another minute or so for any written questions. I do see people dropping off the line, so I think people are probably happy.
Yeah, I can't see any questions coming through, guys. I think we can end it here now.
Okay.
But thank you both.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Jobin, for helping us set this up. Bart, thank you so much for joining me and helping to present this content. I had a great time. I hope you did too.
I did as well. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Vanessa, is there any other housekeeping we need to do before we close out?
No, I think that's it. If there's any further questions, obviously we shared some links in the chat, so you can follow them and reach out to us through our contact us page as well. I think that's it, guys. Thank you for hosting, and thanks everyone who joined.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much.